Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So President Trump has deployed the National Guard and then the U.S. Marines to Los Angeles over the objections of state and local officials, saying that the troops are needed to support immigration detention operations that are being carried out by ICE. On Sunday night, the president threatened to deploy ICE agents to other cities around the country that he sees as, quote, the core of the Democrat power center, end quote, specifically mentioning Chicago and New York. Secretary Hegseth, if the president wanted to deploy Marines to Chicago and New York City like he did in Los Angeles, would you carry out that order even if the local governors and mayors objected?
When President Trump decided to deploy the National Guard and later the U.S. Marines to Los Angeles, it set off an immediate storm of controversy because the move directly overrode the objections of state and local officials. Los Angeles, like many major cities, has its own law enforcement agencies and elected leaders who are entrusted with maintaining order and protecting their communities. Yet, the president justified this dramatic show of force by framing it as a necessary measure to support federal immigration enforcement carried out by ICE agents. He claimed that these agents were under threat, and that only military intervention could ensure they carried out their duties without interference. This justification, however, raised deep concerns about the use of federal power and whether such an action was truly about safety or more about projecting authority into regions that politically opposed him. On top of the deployment itself, the president escalated tensions further by openly threatening to expand these operations to other cities, specifically naming Chicago and New York as possible next targets.
Well, Senator, because Governor Newsom was unwilling to address
That's not
protecting
my question.
federal law enforcement agents in Los Angeles, President Trump had all the authorities and the Defense Department happily supported defending our ICE agents in the conduct of their job. They have the right as Americans to be able to do their job without being attacked by mobs. And we will protect them in that process. And if other states needed it, we would provide that.
I know that you heard my question. So you would be willing to send troops if the president ordered it to Chicago, New York City? That's right.
Well, thankfully, New York City, unlike California, unlike Gavin Newsom, is willing to step up and address the issue with their local law enforcement.
I will take that as a yes. How about if the president says he wants to send troops to 15 cities? Would you be willing to do that?
Senator, I don't accept your hypothetical because it's
That's a hypothetical.
Not a real
That's
one.
the question. You're the Secretary of Defense. Would you send troops to 15 cities if the president said do it? Would you do it? 15 cities.
Again, Senator, it's a complete hypothetical lacking any context
Look,
at all.
You're the Secretary
and I refuse
of
to box
Defense.
myself in based on
Well, you
questioning
can refuse,
on a hypothetical.
But you're here asking for $1 trillion, and I want to know how you're going to spend it. And so my question is, if Donald Trump tells you to send troops to 15 American cities, are you going to spend the money and send the troops?
When senators pressed the defense secretary on whether he would follow through if President Trump ordered the deployment of troops to multiple American cities, the question was not abstract. It was a direct attempt to pin down the limits of executive power. The issue was simple on the surface, but carried massive implications. Would the Defense Department, under his leadership, comply with a presidential order to station U.S. troops in as many as 15 American cities, even if their governors and mayors opposed it? The senator wanted a straightforward answer, yet what followed was a pattern of avoidance. The defense secretary repeatedly sidestepped, insisting that such a question was merely hypothetical, and refusing to provide a yes or no. This refusal to commit revealed the central tension. By not ruling out such a move, he effectively left the door open for it to happen. At the same time, by not admitting it directly, he shielded himself from accountability in the moment. Instead of answering, he shifted the discussion toward border security, praising the administration for reinforcing the southern border and contrasting it with what he described as failures of the previous administration. This diversion was striking because it moved the conversation away from the senator's concern about military overreach within U.S. cities and toward a broader narrative of national defense.
thankfully, we're spending money on securing our southern border, a way the previous administration abandoned and allowed
Okay, so you're
21
not gonna
million
answer
illegals to
that
enter our
question
country. So
anyway.
defending our homeland is a real serious priority under this administration, and we're doing
I
it.
understand the question about defense. Secretary Hegseth, about 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines have been sent to LA. Is there a number of troops deployed to American cities over the objections of governors and mayors at which you would be concerned that we are undermining our national defense?
Senator, we've spent 2 decades guarding other people's borders. We think at the Defense Department it's about time we shore up ours.
So that's my question. Is there a number at which sending those troops to Los Angeles or Chicago or New York starts to undermine our ability to defend ourselves around the globe? Is there a number?
Senator, we look at capabilities and readiness around the globe all the time, and we're quite satisfied with our capabilities to defend the homeland, and we'll provide more if and when it's necessary.
So you are satisfied with our capabilities. Let me just ask, have you actually done the analysis and figured out how many troops you can deploy domestically before you start to undermine readiness around the world? Have you done that analysis?
This was not just a matter of numbers. It was a question of priorities. The United States maintains a massive global military presence, with responsibilities stretching across Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and beyond. The strength of that posture depends on maintaining trained, ready, and available forces. If too many were diverted to police American streets, then readiness abroad could falter. When pressed, the Defense Secretary claimed that the Pentagon constantly monitors readiness and that he was confident America remained fully capable of defending itself worldwide. But when the senator asked for specifics, such as whether a detailed analysis had been conducted and what the maximum safe number of domestic deployments might be, the secretary refused to provide answers. He admitted the analysis existed but would not share it with Congress. This refusal left lawmakers in the dark, unable to gauge whether current or future deployments might stretch the military too thin. The lack of transparency fueled suspicion that the administration was downplaying risks in order to justify a controversial policy. It also raised questions about oversight. If the executive branch alone decided what level of deployment was acceptable, then Congress and the public were left without the tools to hold them accountable. Another layer of concern was how these deployments could reshape the role of the military itself. For decades, U.S. troops have primarily been stationed abroad to secure alliances, deter rivals, and protect national interests overseas. Bringing large numbers back for domestic operations risked redefining the military's purpose from defending against external threats to controlling internal political disputes.
Yes, ma'am.
Then would you let the rest of us in on it? We are the Senate Armed Services Committee, and you're here to ask for $1 trillion. What's the number?
We've got contingencies and plans for any number of capabilities should governors be unable, as Gavin Newsom has been, to actually secure his own federal agents in their cities.
How many troops can you deploy domestically before you start to cut into our readiness internationally?
As I said, previous administrations deployed our National Guard all around the globe in numbers far beyond what we were capable of supporting. So limited contingencies inside the United States to protect federal law enforcement is
If the Supreme Court orders
doable.
you to remove troops from American city streets, will you do so?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. If the Supreme Court orders you to remove troops from American cities, will you do so?
As I've said, Senator, I don't believe district courts should determine national security policy, but if the Supreme Court rules on a topic, we will abide by that.
Okay. During her press conference last week, Secretary Noem said, "We are staying here to liberate the city from its mayor and its governor, people who were elected by a majority of voters." Secretary Hegseth is saying he is ready to deploy more troops and won't tell us what the implications are for our national defense. This is un-American and it makes us unsafe. I wish our Republican colleagues would speak up.
The time of the senator has expired.